Joel is just so cute. I love Joel.
I'm a big Joel fan. Canada loves you. Your house guests love you. Did a great job.
It's okay to be a little weird because we all have our weird quirks and stuff. And
Joel is the best. Joel, you're the winner, and I will shout loudest. Don't you worry.
Joel's a really smart guy.
Let's hear it, please, for Joel.
What's up, everybody? This is Joel with another edition of Random Thoughts. We are getting down to the wire in Big Brother Canada season number 6, with less than a week to go before we crown another winner of BB Can. And here to talk everything Big Brother Canada with me is somebody who knows a thing or two about following the live feeds. He was a longtime member of the LFC. It is the great Alex Kidwell. Alex, how's it going?
I'm good, Joel. It's good to talk to you. I think, it's funny. I think it was like exactly a year ago this weekend that we met each other because it was Reality Rally, right? So it's like, which is going on now. So yeah, it's been exactly a year, and yeah, I appreciate you inviting me on, man. Like, it'll be fun to talk some Big Brother with you.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to have you on. I know. I think when I got out of the house, you were still working as a live feed correspondent, and I believe Jordan told me that you were slated to originally be the person who was going to break down my game, so I was really curious to have you on. So I guess let's get this out of the way. This is completely unrelated to what's going on in BB Can 6 right now, but Taryn had said that you were too busy practicing your Call Me Maybe moves when you could not be on. What was the real reason? Address the elephant in the room. Why could you not go on with me? Do you even remember?
I really don't. I mean, I like the thing that makes the most sense is we just like adjusted the schedule because somebody couldn't do a day or something. But I don't remember, like, if it was me that couldn't do that day, I don't know what it would have been more important. Like, I don't have much going on, so I can't imagine it would have been like anything too cool. But I'm drawing a blank, buddy. I'm sorry.
All right. Well,
it's nothing personal. I know that.
Yeah. No, I know. So it had nothing to do with like any sort of an intimidation about my Napoleon Dynamite like hair. You weren't jealous of that or anything?
Definitely not. I think maybe the one critical thing I said was like when we first got the cast introduction. I think I might have said like, "Man, Ian gets nerdier every year" or something, because it went Ian, Steve, you. It just seemed like a natural progression, but. Anyway, that might have been the only shot I took.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyways, that's out of the way. Let's get to the real important stuff.
I'm one to talk, man, because I'm sitting there. We're looking exactly the same as you, all of you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it. I guess first off, I'm curious from your perspective. You've been so active on the live feeds because it's been your job for a number of years to cover the live feeds on Big Brother Canada and on Big Brother US as well. What's it been like, sort of being on the sideline, so to speak, and maybe not following it quite as thoroughly? Obviously, you're still in tune and in touch with what's going on, but has it been different this time around as opposed to previous times?
Yeah, it's overwhelmingly refreshing. I gotta be honest, man. Like, live feeds, like just covering them the way I was doing, it really, it started to take its toll on me. Like, it was really, I noticed it down the stretch. Like, it was, like, it's not just following live feeds. It's following live feeds so closely that like you can, if any question came to you from any fan, you could answer it, like just this idea that like, I don't want anyone to be able to say like, no, what he just said on that podcast was wrong. Like, so in order to have that depth of knowledge, like the level of immersion you have to have at that point is just so much that like, yeah, for Big Brother 19, man, I was just, I was just watching feeds all the time. I wasn't leaving the house. I was just like social media was like my drug, it was just like too much. And this spring has been great because I've been going outside a lot and I've been doing things that I needed to be doing more that I wasn't doing.
All right, well, we're going to talk about where we left off with my last podcast, which was heading into the eviction. There's obviously a lot to tackle from then, but let's talk about Maddie leaving the house on the eviction thing. Were you surprised, or do you think that this was the best move for Derek and Kayla, knowing that they were ultimately the ones that held the power that week?
I mean, I guess in a perfect world, if they knew what we knew, I think Paris is the most dangerous of that three in terms of threat for jury votes. So if they knew everything, then maybe they get rid of Paris there. But their logic was that they hadn't seen any of the three win a competition, but they'd seen Maddie come close. And based on that logic and the information they had available, like, I don't think I can really fault them for the choice that they did make. Yeah, ultimately, we know that Paris is more dangerous than Maddie, but like, if there's one thing Paris is good at, it's playing dumb, right? That's the one skill she's really had all season. And I mean, that has been pretty effective. Like, they don't see her as dangerous, really.
What do you think Maddie almost has herself to blame for being in the position? Because I'm just thinking of some of the campaigns that she used when she was up on the block this week. And ultimately, I think her best angle personally was the fact that she was probably the top GOAT in terms of likability, in terms of strategic game, comp wins and stuff. She didn't really have anything on her resume from what I could see. But she was talking about, she was campaigning to Derek and Kayla and talking about, like, you know, I don't have any comp wins. But then she was articulating, like, but you know, Johnny on day 53 did this, and then this person on this day. So she was specifying so much. So in a way, she was indirectly making herself a big threat. So does she just have herself to blame for just campaigning in the wrong way to them?
There's an element of that for sure. I also think she's hurt by the fact that Paris is like readily willing to throw her under the bus. And I think that was like a line she wasn't necessarily willing to cross, which, like, at least like towards the end, like if your game's about to end, man, like I think you should just, you know, you can always apologize later. You know what I mean? And just say, like, look, it was a game. I was desperate. I mean, I would like to see, I feel like there was more she could have tried to throw at the wall. I don't know if it would have been effective. I think the thing that really hurts her once you get down to Final Five is that Paris has a relationship with Derek and Kayla that goes all the way back to when, like, her and Jesse were in one bed and Derek and Kayla were in the other. Like, it's really hard to undo that many weeks of just like casual conversation, you know, like it's hard to convince someone not to trust Paris when, like, if Paris has, you know, for better or worse, Paris has kind of been in Kayla's ear all season and Maddie hasn't. So she waited too long and spent too much time letting Paris campaign to Kayla for her, as opposed to like making that connection and nudging Paris out, I guess, it would be my take.
So is this pretty much like a foregone conclusion heading into the eviction on Thursday? It seemed like, just based on, I know we've seen a lot of product placement and a lot of like, let's go play some Hasbro board games. And don't get me wrong, like, playing Jenga is fun and entertaining in and of itself.
I love Wendy's.
Yeah, right? Right? So, but like, I feel like just based on the edit, it was pretty much like an anticlimactic moment that it was going to be Maddie going home. Did you think there was any chance Paris was going to get evicted on Thursday?
I didn't. I really didn't. It seemed like Maddie was at a point resigning to the fate, as opposed to like just trying to find a new way to spin it, right? Like when Dan's in that room by himself, how am I going to spin my way out of this one? That's what you need to do. If things aren't working, separate, recollect, and approach with a new strategy, right? And I feel like we didn't get enough of that from Maddie. I think she just, you know, ran into the wall and then got, you know, frustrated by the fact that she wasn't making any headway, which is understandable. I mean, it's got to be very frustrating, especially when you get down towards the end. It's like, well, what more can I say? These people know, like, we've played together so long, we've talked together so long, like, there's nothing I can say they don't already know. It gets tough towards the end. I mean, you know that. Yeah. It's pretty hard. Like, what can I really say at this point, right? It's like, well, you know who Kelsey is, you know who I am, and this is where we are. Like,
yeah, it's funny. It's funny because I was in kind of a similar position as this sort of tragic trio was in as well. And this is kind of the point where everything just kind of, like, the rails just fell off for all of us, and then we just got sort of pagonged down the stretch at this point. So it was kind of, and ironically, I think it was the exact same HOH that Kelsey won when we got knocked out, like who was HOH. So I had a lot of like interesting and not the funnest memories, although I think that week was my Carly Rae week, and that's what everyone remembers. So,
it went viral.
It went viral. Yeah, there we go. I'm happy at the very least because nobody remembers any of the horrible gameplay that I had down the stretch that week that kind of like sunk my own ship. People just remember like, oh, he sang Carly Rae that week. It was so cute. So I'm like, okay, that's great. Let's all like remember that and not anything that happened after that point.
That's right, man. Go in there and leave a positive legacy. That's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that's been talked about heavily, more so on the live feeds, but also a lot on the edited show over the last couple episodes, has been the idea of Kayla cutting Derek, and would Derek actually cut Kayla? Kayla had a conversation, all paranoid, asking Derek numerous times about, like, hey, you're not going to vote me out. You're going to take me, right? You're going to take me to the final two. Derek talks about how if Kayla ends up cutting Derek, that would affect his ability, like his relationship with her. He would not talk to her. He would probably take that to jury house. Do you think that Derek is doing that for gameplay to sort of reemphasize that for Kayla to take him, or do you think he actually it would just legitimately be hurt?
I lean towards the latter, just because, Derek is not, I mean, he was, he wasn't a fan of this game coming in. So, like, that's a level of savviness that I'm not, like, going to automatically assign him until, like, he shows that he's deserved it, I guess. I do feel like, though, that talk is cheap to a degree. Like, he can say that now, and I believe he means it. But when push comes to shove and it's finale night and Kayla cuts him and he's on the stage and, like, he votes for Paris, the audience will boo him. You know what I mean? Like, he has to, like, that'll probably go through his head. Like, can you really justify in front of a live studio audience voting against your showmans after all? Like, is that the way you just talked about? Like, people remember the Carly Rae video and they don't remember the bad stuff. Is that the way you want people to remember you? Because that's how people will remember you, Derek. Like, for better or worse, people won't remember the game you played or the HOHs you won. They'll be like, oh, yeah, that was that guy who was so salty and couldn't vote for his girlfriend. Like, You don't want that legacy. Nobody wants that legacy.
But unfortunately for Derek, the audience doesn't vote on who is the winner. It's the jury who votes. So with that being said, you said when she cuts Kayla. So you think there's, like, zero doubt that she is going to cut Derek if she gets the opportunity?
Oh, not necessarily. I mean, I do think she will. I don't think I don't think she'll have any hesitation about doing it if she feels like that's the correct move. I'm still not positive that she would feel like that's, like, necessarily her best move, but if she did, I don't think, like, Kayla has been great. Like, she's really demonstrated a level of, willingness to make the big move this season. And, she's not afraid to cut her own showmans, which we like to see. So, it's just all very interesting, right? Because, like, you've got the bitterness of various jury members factoring in ways that almost make it detrimental to win final HOH because of who you will have to cut, right? It's kind of weird.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Do you think that the jury, this is something that I've talked about a lot, is, I don't know, I think it might be in Derek and Kayla's best interest just to take each other simply so that the jury will be like, well, you got to pick one of us. Do you think it's in either Derek or Kayla's best interest to take each other, that they have a better shot against each other, or do you think they should take a shot against Will or Paris?
Well, I mean, I think if anyone could go there with Will, they should. I mean, I think Will is the free pass, but I assume, like, they probably got rid of Will at 4 based on what, like, I think we know. I mean, we don't know anything for sure because feeds are gone, but it seemed like that's probably the way it was trending. So if Will is gone, that's kind of a mistake, unfortunately. But then I think it's hard for me to see Kayla losing, even though, people have shown that there are potential scenarios where she loses. I do feel like at the end of the day, she should beat both Paris and Derek if she's able to get there. Like, it would come down to, a couple of votes here or there. Like, Ryan doesn't like Kayla. Johnny has a couple, could fluctuate. Johnny is really interesting when it comes down to Paris and Derek, because I don't know which way he goes there. And I think we know pretty much which way everyone else goes. So that one's interesting. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to discuss there.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into the live feeds then, because you mentioned Will originally is probably gone. So let's get into the live feeds right now, because Paris is the head of household. Paris, I don't know that I've been mostly following, like, online Big Brother and Hamster Watch, but I think we can assume I didn't remember seeing any of them confirm that Derek and Kayla were nominated by Paris, but I think it's kind of a no-brainer that they were both nominated. Kayla won the power of veto. I have kind of a silly question for you, but do you think that because of the promises that Kayla was making to Will and pushing the whole East Coast thing with Will, but also trying to reinforce stuff with Derek that she's good with Derek, do you think that Kayla has sort of boxed herself into a bad situation, and maybe because of the things she said to Will and the things she said to Derek, that she should have thrown the veto competition. It seems crazy, but like I feel like Derek was a bigger target and was going to get evicted over her, right? I don't.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like that was certainly possible. It's tricky. It's really tricky because in a perfect world, and trust that like our showmans would not but against. I mean, it becomes backwards when you have to worry about protecting the feelings of the people that are supposed to be closest to you.
Yeah.
Because like there's only so much jury management you can do when someone's like, if you eliminate me ever, then it's like, well, that's everyone gets eliminated but two of us at the end. So it's pretty dicey. It just I mean it's a tricky situation where I think Kayla, you got to win. I mean, at Final Four, you win the veto because it's safety. It allows you to cast the sole vote on who goes. That way she could protect Derek. I think it's better not to cut Derek at 4, to go into 3 with a better chance of people taking you to the end and, just figure it out from there. I think she probably played it right.
Yeah, I agree she did, although I don't know. Do you think maybe her undoing, and if she ends up losing the game, will be herself making a little bit too many deals and not keeping the stuff to herself about wanting Will in the end and being too vocal about cutting Derek? Will that be her undoing?
It's definitely possible. I was listening to Taryn was on with Kirsten this morning on the RHAP live feed updates, which have been fantastic as always. Very, very helpful if you're not, able to just keep up with every minute of live feeds, which like, don't do yourself a favor. Don't do that. I mean, I think they made a really good point where they were talking about kind of this situation where Kayla has almost created a self-fulfilling prophecy in a little bit of a way where, by saying, I'm going to cut Derek and I know I need to cut Derek to win and stuff like that. Maybe she has confirmed that in people's minds where like, if she had instead said, I don't know that that's necessarily true. If people had, pitched that to her or like, I still think I can beat Derek. Like that just like reinforces in people's heads, like, oh, maybe she can beat Derek. Like, I just think once you are no longer advocating for yourself in a certain, sense, it's all about the message you're leaving them with as they're leaving. Like it's fine if you're downplaying what you've done. Like that's actually good. But then you have to do what like Derek did in Big Brother 16 and like the night before they leave, talk to them and tell them everything you've actually done so that you get the credit you deserve.
On the other hand, though, I think Kayla maybe she just didn't expect Derek to be like so threatening and so just like, I'm not going to talk to you. So now she's I feel like she's trying to indirectly tell him like, I'm probably going to cut you. But do you think Derek's smart enough to pick up on that? Because she's basically telling him without saying, I'm going to cut you. Do you think Derek's picking up on that? Do you think that will like trigger something in his mind to be like, well, that's it. I'm going to cut you next chance I get.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on if Derek thinks he can beat Kayla. Because if Derek thinks in his mind that he can beat Kayla, then the best case scenario is to take Kayla, win, not offend her. Like you just get your cake and eat it too. You know what I mean? Like that's Derek's dream scenario. And I could see him shooting for that and possibly falling short because I just don't know that that's necessarily going to work out. I mean, I really do feel like at the end of the day, like Kayla should beat Derek and Kayla should beat Paris, regardless of anything. Like I know, it's interesting. It takes me back to Big Brother Canada 4, like your season, because I remember doing all this analysis going in, like Kelsey or the brothers, or like who's going to vote. Like I remember feeling like it was a pretty good feeling. Like all right, it was Tim, and if Tim gets there, he's got this.
Yeah.
But like this was the one that I was struggling with, and I remember thinking like, I feel like Kelsey maybe has this, and I, based on what I was seeing from jury videos and stuff like that, and I just kind of like convinced myself that Kelsey had this vote. And actually, I do want to ask you, like, how much? Because people always say, I've seen it on Twitter 3 times today. Final speeches don't matter. Did they matter in your season? Because I feel like I remember Mitch saying like he kind of wanted to vote for Kelsey, but she didn't give him anything that he could base a winning vote off of. Is that accurate?
I believe that for Mitch, I think his vote was up in the air. I believe
it was live.
Mitch had a talk with me in the
So it
jury
is
house
possible.
before, and Mitch was actually like really struggling with it. And he was like, "Joel, what do you think? Who should I go with?" And I can tell you from myself, my mind wasn't 100% made up, but I had a pretty good feeling going into it that if it's Tim against any of those two, it's probably I got Tim's vote. If it's Kelsey against the brothers, I was more so leaning towards the brothers, unless the brothers had like just an epic meltdown, and maybe instead of wanting to nominate themselves, if they get up there and like, we'd like Kelsey to win. Then if they would have said that, then maybe
finale equivalent of nominating yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe in that situation, I would have been like, okay, well, I was gonna vote for you guys, but not. I mean, I was only a week removed from the game at that point, so for me, I had a pretty good idea of who I felt like had a desire to win from the very beginning, but also I don't necessarily think that the brothers had a better strategic game than Kelsey throughout, but
Kelsey was underrated in a lot of ways. I mean, people, it wasn't shown on, on the show so much, but I mean, she figured out the game.
Yeah, she did. She did originally.
Helped to watch live feeds for a week.
Yeah, that's true. That helped, but also, for me, it came down to competition wins, but also it came down to the brothers. Pretty much, aside from that one moment when they lost their mind in the double eviction and wanted to nominate themselves, aside from that, they were there ready to fight all the time, and I didn't feel like Kelsey always had that desire to want to be in there and to fight at all costs until Jared and Raul were eliminated, and ultimately that was kind of what made the decision me swing towards the brothers more than Kelsey.
Yeah, that's fair. You also, I mean, you spent a lot more time working with the brothers in that season.
Exactly.
And just in general. I mean, and that again, that was a fun season because you have the kind of middle group with, I mean, and for a lot of time it was kind of like Mitch and Cass and Tim and you and the brothers just kind of like, hovering in the middle, letting Dallas blow up, letting other people do their thing,
Yeah. Yeah, but another interesting thing from my season, which I want to tie back to this season, is the idea of jury members trying to sort of be the foreman, so to speak, and sway the jury. Jared and Raul were kind of those people that were trying to sway things Kelsey's way, and that really turned a lot of us off, the fact that they were being so vocal. Do you think, who do you think would have that position in the jury for BB Can 6 right now?
It's funny you say that, man. Yeah, Jordan has said that was like the thing that did the most damage to Godfrey's chances, that Bruno and Bobby were in there like, bro, you don't even know, man. Godfrey, man, you just don't know. Well, what did he do? Bro, you don't even know. Like, well, I can imagine that would be frustrating. It's like, well, I didn't see that. What are you talking about? Like, so, juries are so tricky, man, right? Like, we have this idea of kind of what we think they know, but like, it's funny. You can watch people 24/7 and still not be in their heads. You can think you can have a good idea, but then also, then they have time and they're away. And then other things happen too. Like people come in who are just more better at suggestion, and other people realize like that they're just not as independent thinkers as they said they were going to be in their exit interview with Arissa. You know what I mean? Like sometimes people are like, yeah, this is how I feel. And then like an ally of theirs gets in there like, you don't feel that way. Oh, right. I don't feel that way. Yeah, no, that's not like, so it's tricky. I just keep coming back to the fact that like just Kayla's played such a strong game, and she has enough intelligent advocates in there, like Olivia, Allie, Johnny, I think would be advocates for Kayla in most scenarios. I have a hard time seeing, like, obviously Ryan has some just cause to not want to vote for Kayla. She did him real dirty in that goodbye message. Like that was unnecessary for sure. But at the same time, like, I don't think she should necessarily need Ryan's vote. I think like, she should have it. Like, I would be surprised if she doesn't.
You think he even has it over? You think she even has it over Paris, given the fact that Ryan talked so much throughout the game about how Paris was kind of like a ride or die for him for a while? You don't think that he would use the relationship?
Oh yeah, well I think Paris would have Ryan's vote. I just still think Kayla takes the overall vote. I think at that point you've got like Johnny, Allie, Olivia, and regardless of what he says, I think Derek's voting for Kayla there. Like, I just have a hard time. Like, I just go back to this thing. Like, really, dude, you're going to do this in front of a live studio audience? Like, that would be pretty ballsy, but I just don't see it, man. It doesn't, like, your game is over. All that can do is just hurt your reputation. And you, even if you don't know the game, you got to think, like, boy.
Well, but if he's cut at
people
final
aren't gonna
three,
like this.
if he's cut at final 3, though, is he going to have the sense of just being like, oh, how am I going to be perceived? Because you're literally like out of the house and then walking into the jury within like less than an hour after that. Do you think he's going to be able to, in that time, be like, all right, keep it classy. There's an audience now, because that's fast.
It's fast. It's true. You know, I don't even know it's so much about keeping it classy as much as it is like, they're gonna boo me if I do this. Like, do you want to get booed? Like, I really think they would. I could see it now. Like, I'm visualizing it. Derek votes for Paris. Boo! What? Like, Twitter goes berserk. Like this.
That would be like, I think that would
He'll kill his brand before he ever started it.
Yeah, I think that would probably blow the Topaz messed up vote out of the water, right? Would that be the ultimate just like jaw-dropping BB can jury vote moment?
I think Topaz still takes it. That was insane. But like it's just, people, Netta did it perfect, right? Like in Big Brother Canada 2, and she ended up with a great reputation coming out of Big Brother Canada 2. And like, say what you want about her game in Big Brother Canada 5 if some people like turned against her, but like her reputation going into that season was like 100% fan favorite. Everybody loved Netta. And she ended the game perfectly. Like, yes, John cut her. Yes, she ended up on the wrong side of that, but she did it right. She cast her vote for the best player and got in a snarky dig at the same time. Like, that's what you do. Like, that's what Derek needs to do. Be like, Kayla, what'd you do this season that didn't include me or something? Like, get in your line, get your sour grapes in if you got to, but don't cost your showmans all the money. Like, that's just not okay, man.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the John and Netta thing, because that kind of leads me to my next point, and that is that during the John and Netta season, in season number 2, there was a lot of talk afterwards about like, oh, the jury would have voted for whoever cut the other person. So John cut Netta, they ended up voting for John. Had Netta cut John, they would have voted for Netta. But if Netta hadn't done that, or if John hadn't done that, then it would have been a whole different story. Do you think the jury is going to take that into consideration this time around? And if Derek cuts Kayla, they all vote for Derek, and vice versa if Kayla cuts Derek?
It seems that way. I mean, it's very possible. I just would be surprised if it comes down to, no matter how it shakes out, if it comes down to Derek and Kayla, I would just be surprised if there's 4 Derek votes there. Like, just however it shakes out, once, I don't know. Maybe it's me being naive. Maybe it's just me like putting more, credence on Kayla's game than the jury is going to. It's just a situation where I do feel like Derek wouldn't be there without Kayla, and Kayla very easily could be there without Derek. And regardless of like who cuts who, like who makes the very last move of the game, this game is 70 days. Like, it doesn't come down to one decision. Like, it really shouldn't. It should be the entire body of work. And I think when you look at the entire body of work, it's very hard to advocate that Derek has played a better game than Kayla. And at the end of the day, is if he's looking at Kayla and Paris, he could vote for Paris, but that would be coming from like the bitter part of his heart, right? Or he could vote for Kayla, and possibly she'll take him out for like drinks and dinner and stuff too. Like, maybe he gets a piece of that, like there's so many reasons to vote for Kayla, dude. What are you thinking?
would that not be like the ultimate slap in the face for Kayla if she ends up like not only losing Derek's vote, and maybe she loses to Paris by that one vote, but then also Derek actually follows through and never wants to talk to Kayla again? Like, is there any other worse situation that you could think of for Kayla to lose the game than like that?
I actually can, because what that would do is all the fans would rally behind Kayla, and Derek would just get so much hate, and Kayla would just be a beloved, queen, fan favorite, and she would be like the fervor for her for the next All-Stars opportunity would be at an all-time high. Like, it would do wonders for her Big Brother brand. So that's like losing the battle and winning the war.
Yeah,
in a little bit of a sense.
Do you think there's any chance? I want to get another point in about the whole John and Netta situation, because during that time, John never really talked about cutting Netta, so it was like a big shock to us, but he was mostly keeping it to herself. Do you think we are might potentially be getting set up for that with Derek if he wins final HOH?
It's possible. I just, I think John was such a sponge in that season. Like, he really was learning. Like, I think I've called John a unicorn and an enigma and all this stuff because I just don't think you find recruits like John very often. Like, John is a great example of how recruits can be fantastic. You know what I mean? But it's just so rare. I think it helps that he had this, competitive hockey background and just, he has a strong drive to win. This guy cares about winning. And I think that more than anything, that's what you need from players. It's just they want to win at all costs. And John, he got in there, and maybe it helped him too that he got, he hurt his shoulder. So then he had to rely on a social game, and he started palling around with Arlie and just picking up little things that Arlie knew from being such a diehard fan. And then not only heard and learned, but applied. It's great when you could see somebody put it all in motion like that. And I think John, by the end had really come around as a great player. And I just don't know if I've seen that full immersion and absorption from Derek. You know what I mean? I just feel like on some level, he probably thinks that I can go to the end with Kayla and win. And if he thinks that, then I think he's wrong. But if he doesn't do that and he goes to the end with Paris, I still think he could very easily lose. So it becomes a difficult decision at that point. I do question whether or not he's willing to make that move.
Do you think if Kayla somehow takes Derek to the end, that would really sort of put and it sounds weird to say that it would put a sour taste in the jury's mouth, but she's been so vocal about it this whole time. Yep. If she's got the opportunity, not only here at Final Four and doesn't do it, and then at Final Three and also doesn't do it, will that almost be you've had all these chances, but you never had the balls to do that? We saw Maddie talk about her being kind of a bit of a gutless player as well. If she takes Derek to the end, can that almost be Derek's best argument to be look, she never had the gall to cut me?
Yes, and it's ridiculous. I mean, but it is what it is. Yeah, certainly, Maddie did exit interviews. I mean, that's the impression we got, is that well, if Derek cuts Kayla, I'll vote for Derek. If Kayla cuts Derek, I'll vote for Kayla. It's well, maybe you just think I can beat the other person, and you just I call me crazy, but I don't think the entire game should come down to the last decision like that. I mean, I think there's a much bigger body of work to look at, and you're doing a disservice as a jury member if you're not taking everything into account, but I'm not on the jury. That's not my call. You know what I mean? I can't tell a jury member how they're supposed to vote. So yes, I mean, if we're taking them at their word, it does seem like it's going to be counterintuitive and detrimental to, I mean, you need to cut your showmance if you want to win, and yet, or no, I'm saying, you need to cut your showmance if you want to win, and yet somehow I do feel like Kayla, if everything else was equal, Kayla should take Derek because Kayla should have a better shot at beating Derek. But people aren't thinking like I'm thinking, so put it all to the side.
I guess the one move maybe, because we always talk about, and I'm sure this might be somebody's jury question, or they're going to talk about it during the jury deliberations, is about, well, what does Derek have besides comp wins? He's kind of perceived, I think, not only with us fans, but also with the jury people as sort of a one-trick pony who can only do that. But the one thing I guess he might have to make an argument if he's in Final Two is that conversation he had with Will when he somehow got Will to drop when there was no reason whatsoever for Will to drop out in that Final Five Power Avito competition. Good. Do you think that Derek would have the brains to use that as an argument and be like, hey, I wasn't just a comp person. Look at what I did to save my life against Will. And do you think the jury would buy that and use that as oh, well, he did make some other moves. It wasn't just comp wins.
For me, it still doesn't equal Kayla's body of work. I do think that, if he's thinking that that's definitely a huge pitch that should be a piece of his, arguments at the end. I mean, I think that's his best move of the entire season. You're absolutely right. I look at this jury and I just feel like the vast majority of them are closer to Kayla than Derek. And yes, something would have to change in my mind. Whether that's him, instilling in their mind that he had done this thing. I mean, I don't know, but I feel like Ryan and Will, are going to be Team Derek over there, the people that the jury are least inclined to listen to. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting no matter how it shakes out. I keep coming back to this idea that like when push comes to shove, are you really, like in front of a live studio audience of fans who like, they're judging you. You really gonna do this? You gonna vote for Derek? I guess you could. You might.
I want to give you a hypothetical situation right now, and keep in mind this hypothetical situation has pretty much a 0.0% chance of happening. But this is what we do. We like to talk about things that have absolutely no chance of happening whatsoever. Actually, I think Spencer Bledsoe winning Survivor Cagayan was a better chance at the start for Jeff Probst than this whole situation. But let's say in the hypothetical world that when we find out what happened in the episode on Wednesday for who was evicted between Will and Derek. In the hypothetical world, let's say Derek was evicted and it's Will, Paris, and Kayla in the final three. Is there any situation in that final three that Will doesn't walk away with 20 grand? Keep in mind, 0.0% chance.
There shouldn't be, right? There really shouldn't be. I guess the only thing I could say is maybe there's a scenario where Maddie or Paris could make a loyalty pitch if they win and take the other. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, we're talking about a scenario where Maddie's there, right?
We're talking about we're talking about an impossible scenario where Will is in there with Paris and with Kayla.
Will, Paris, and Kayla. Okay, yeah, I got thrown off, but I was thinking the trio was in there. Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, Will's finishing exactly second there every time. Absolutely. Yeah, and if Paris, if Paris wins, she's taking Will. If Kayla wins, she's taking Will, and if Will wins, he's taking Will and losing.
Is there any kind of a situation where maybe Big Brother can give Will a translator and then he can actually articulate his game some way, and then it's not actually what he's saying, but it can be like, hey, I backstabbed you and I was able to manipulate and do this, but that's not actually what he's saying because we don't understand what he's saying, and he can just say the word Parker lots of times and then get votes that way.
Oh man, yeah, Will is he's true Newfoundland. I mean, he's the Newfoundland that South Park made fun of when they went to Canada. Because I've seen Newfoundlanders on Big Brother Canada, and I'm like, that's not that out there. That doesn't seem like an island that's set apart from the rest of Canada. That's weird and different. But then you get the Will, and I'm like, oh yeah, this guy comes from a long line of fishermen out there or whatever. He's just he's a whole other. It's a whole nother thing.
Okay, now that's the 0.0% chance. Now let's get to the likely situation, and I want to talk about Paris, who is for sure there no matter what we see happen on Wednesday's episode. Paris will be there on finale. How would you assess Paris's game as a whole? Because I've been kind of up and down with Paris throughout the season. What's her best angle to pitch to the jury why she deserves to win against either Derek or Kayla?
Well, I mean, I think it would behoove her to, say a lot about the social bonds that she made that got her there, about the fact that the final five was made up of an alliance she formed in week 2 with Kayla and Derek and her, and an alliance she formed, week 3 with her and Will and Maddie. I mean, I think that's a great pitch. And the fact that you were able to maintain those and hold those, it doesn't even matter if you're embellishing a bit. If people believe it, now it's truth for the purposes of a jury vote. You know what I mean? So I think that's her best pitch. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to see why you go back and forth with Paris. I've, like I said, I haven't watched a lot of live feeds this season, and Paris has gotten an immaculate edit. And it really took me going back and watching. Why don't people like Paris? Because I was posting some stuff online, and people were like, "You're not watching feeds this season, are you?" And I'm like, "Nah, not that much." I just, I'm used to people just saying what I'm saying is right about feeds because I'm usually watching them. So, I got enough, backlash on that Paris comment where I'm like, let's see what's actually going on. And yeah, Paris's problem is that in speaking to the feeders, she gives us every step of her plan so that we now know that what she's trying to do and what ends up happening isn't the same thing. It's a lot easier to be like, yes, it worked. Didn't tell us what it was ahead of time.
Yeah.
You know, like less is more sometimes, I guess. And this is one of those times.
Yeah, because she's obviously, you have to give anybody credit to get all the way to Final Three. It is not an easy thing to do, but on the other hand, you've seen she obviously doesn't have that much sway, I feel like, because she was trying to advocate for Jesse. Jesse went home. She tried to advocate and tried to keep Veronica in the house. Veronica went home. She tried with Ryan. Ryan went home. So all of her allies have been gone, but she's still been able to not really be a strong target with anybody as well, which is a good thing for longevity. But do you think that just the fact that she hasn't been able to really have her way at all, do you think that'll hurt her in the jury's eyes to be like, well, she had no sway the entire season and she only won one comp, so...
Yeah, it's possible. I just, I think though that she is helped by the fact that she has a lot of, good social relationships on that jury. And I mean, you're right in that a lot of what she wanted to happen didn't happen. Like she wasn't ever really like steering the ship this season. But where she was really strong is like, all right, continuing with the stupid steering the ship metaphor, it's like, anyone who's a potential captain can grab the wheel and take the ship where they want to go. She's a potential captain, but she like convinced everyone she was like the person who like scrubs the deck. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to worry about Paris. Like, I still recall early on, like week 2 or whatever, when they did a task, which like, I don't understand, like the Big Brother Canada task and the Heaven and Hell theme this season, we're both like takeover-esque. Like they come and they're gone, and I don't understand what role they really play. Like, let's be consistent. I would like some consistency there. But so like, that one task where she finds out that everyone thinks she's the dumbest person in the house. I mean, and she's thrilled about that. Like that is where Paris really excels. Like she can dumb it down like nobody's business and really, really convince people that she's not someone to worry about. And, a lot of people would argue that's because she's not someone to worry about. But like you said, she did a good job of getting in people's ears. I mean, established relationships. And then once she didn't really lose them. Like, I can't think of like close allies of Paris who later like blew up on her and like tried to like smear her game and stuff like that. A lot of other people had that problem this season, but Paris was very good with damage control. And I think you saw that where she was always, for better or worse, she's always, moving around. She's talking to people. She's in different rooms. And I think a lot of times this season you saw people like stick to their rooms and stick to the people they like. And that's fine. But conversations are happening about you. And, you're better off being there so you can hear what everyone's thinking as opposed to just sticking with your group and knowing what people who think like you are thinking. What's that giving you? You already have that information.
What's her best case scenario for winning? Is it against Derek or against Kayla? Her best chance.
Yeah, right. I think, conventional wisdom to me says it's against Derek because I think Kayla is clearly the better player. But based on, if we're really going into the minutia and really trying to dissect, then I guess it's whoever like cut their showmance has a bit of an advantage versus like if she were to win and take somebody maybe and take the choice out of their hands, maybe that helps her more. Like then they can't advocate that they were ruthless enough to cut their showmance because Paris didn't give them the opportunity. So I think that's probably helpful. But yeah, ultimately, like if she does win part 3, I would expect her to take Derek because if for no other reason, like I just don't expect him to be able to advocate for himself as well as Kayla. Kayla knows this game better and Kayla knows what a potential jury member would be looking for more than Derek does.
Who do you think's the biggest wild card in the jury? Because I've been writing down the different final 2 scenarios here, and there's several of them where I'm like, okay, well, if it's Derek and Kayla, I can pencil in this person here and this person here. I can pencil in Johnny, Liv.
I did some of that earlier.
I can pencil in Johnny, Liv, and Allie if Kayla's in final 2. I think we can both kind of agree on that one. The person that I was having a hard time penciling in those situations was Ryan. Do you think Ryan will be the ultimate person that might decide who wins this game if it's like a 1 or a 2 vote thing?
I don't know. It's possible.
If it's not him, who is it?
I think there's a scenario between like Derek and Paris where Johnny is the deciding vote there. Like, I don't necessarily know how Johnny votes in that scenario. I feel pretty good that it's 3-3 aside from Johnny. But I think that's kind of interesting. I think he might lean Paris, but I don't know for sure. I think, Ryan probably votes for Derek over Kayla. I just feel like even if he does that, maybe Johnny, Liv, Allie, and Paris still go Kayla and she wins. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think at that point, Paris's vote, but I do feel like Paris would vote for Kayla over Derek. So I don't know. I mean, if Kayla's there, I think she wins. I really do.
We'll see. It'll be interesting to
We'll see.
We'll see. I would hope so. I'm on the same page with you in the sense that I feel like Kayla is by far the most deserving out of anybody there. How she was able to stay to start that triple eviction is still like mind blowing to me, that she was able to somehow sway those people to vote her way. I'm not 100% convinced, and it's simply because I've been on a jury before, and I know how bitter and hurt you are. And even I'll even advocate for it myself, that I was upset and a little bit bitter when I was on the jury. Did I vote out of bitterness? I still, a couple years later, don't regret the vote that I made personally. But was I bitter? And do I think everybody who's on a jury is a little bit bitter and a little bit sour? Yes, I do. Honest to God, I do. So, yeah.
It's understandable. I'm critical of it all the time on Twitter, but like, who am I? I don't know why anyone listens to me anyway. I'm just yapping about stuff.
How would you assess, final question for you, Alex, how would you assess this whole season? How would you rate this season of Big Brother Canada as a whole from start to finish?
That's a great question, man. I go back and forth. I don't know if you saw, like, Hamster Watch put out an article yesterday or the day before where she was pretty critical of the season. Obviously, the feed cuts were very frustrating. Like, I didn't watch much feed. It was kind of a blessing that I wasn't so invested, because it didn't frustrate me as much as I know a lot of my friends and people I follow on Big Brother Twitter were getting really frustrated by the fact that they blocked off this amount of time to watch live feeds, and the live feeds aren't there, even though it was like supposed to be a party tonight or something. It's like, it would be nice if you could set your watch to this thing. Like, I know people would be willing to pay so that they could set their watch to this kind of thing. So that's certainly frustrating. It did seem like the edit, even more than any season before, was telling a different story than what we seem to be watching on live feeds. Certainly, like, the updates I was getting from people seemed to be not often consistent with the show. And there were probably, I know they've got to fit in the plugs and fit in, various types of conversations they want to appeal to as broad a group as possible. So there's some showmance talk, some strategy talk, some silly talk. They kind of, it's all encompassing. But I feel like there was a way to do that and still be more true to these, like, who these people actually were in the house. Like, what's beautiful about Big Brother is, like, it shows all of humanity, not just like the pretty side of humanity. Like, we see the best and worst of people. Like, it's a roller coaster, man. The highs, the lows, all of it. We get it all. And that's what we love. We love just the raw realness.
But I think we can all agree on the fact that in terms of entertainment, these Hasbro board games that they've been able to play
I got too far down the hill.
Blow us out of the water in terms of entertainment from all Big Brother seasons. Is there nothing more entertaining than sitting down and watching people play a game of Twister that has nothing at stake at all?
Yeah, right. Like, there's certainly some work that can be done, I think, if we're wanting to just kind of tidy this up a bit. But at the same time, I go back to the fact that, like, a year ago this time, we didn't even know if we'd have a Big Brother Canada. And, I'm an American. It's easy for me to say, like, man, this wasn't great. But, like, Canadians, this is what you have, man. This is what you get. And, like, you've got to, love what you can get. Like, you can be critical, but you also appreciate it for what it is, and what you're getting, I think, is important. And, like, the season was pretty good, man. Like, there was some definite players. There was, some entertaining players too. Like, I mean, obviously, like, I've been a little critical of him since he's come out of the house and been really salty, but, like, Hamza was really entertaining in there. Like, there were some people that were really fun to watch. Like, even if they might not have known who their character was. Some of them, like, maybe they thought they were the strategist, and it turns out they were like, like the ticking time bomb. You know what I mean? But, like, that's fun. Like, that's great too. We need some of that. We need, big dynamic personalities. We need game players. It's fun to see people, not, like, set in terms of an alliance, like, actually considering options each week. What's really good for me, not what does my alliance tell me is good for me, like, and I think we did get a good amount of that this season. So Yeah, some days I'm more critical than others, but ultimately, like, this was a pretty good season.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree compared to.
It just started off on the wrong foot because my buddy Kirsten didn't get in there, and so I was going to this season like this stupid season, like I just wasn't ready to enjoy it right.
Yeah, it started off a little rough for them, sure, and I don't think the Gate Crashers really met the expectations that everybody was thinking.
It's a good idea when they're known entities. You know what I mean? Like that was kind of cool. Like I could go find the best of Tim on YouTube and be like, oh, do I want to vote for this guy or do I like Jace from, because I know we all know Jace. Yeah. But like when all we have to go off of is just like, a little 20-second video, it's like, man, I don't know who these people are. It's really hard to make any kind of informed decision there.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Well, on that note, we are going to put an end to this right now. Alex, I want to thank you again for coming on here and doing this. I always enjoyed your live feed updates while you were working with the LFC, and it's a joy to get to talk to you and get your analysis on Big Brother, because I don't know too many people out there who live and breathe the reality TV world like you do, and it's always a joy to talk to you about Big Brother Canada. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. Anytime you want me to come back, I'm happy to do it. I pour you and your venture, everything you got going on. I wish you the best. And yeah, man, I live and breathe this stuff. Even when I'm, doing other stuff with my life, I can't help but get sucked back in. So anytime.
Last but not least, before we wrap this up, anything you want to plug for people who want to find out what's going on with Alex Kidwell? How can they do so?
Man, I haven't been doing too much, really. I started a little Kidwell's Corner podcast. I did one episode where I previewed the cast of Celebrity Big Brother and then just like got into other stuff and fell off and, stopped updating it. But man, I really do enjoy it. Like just the podcasting is fun. It's nice to be able to do casual with no expectations, where like, if I'm wrong, I'll be like, oh yeah, well, I didn't really watch that part, not like, oh, you're really supposed to be on this. So I think I'll probably get back onto it. It's been nice to take a break. Maybe I'll do some casual updating for, Big Brother 20. I do kind of want to do maybe a podcast, talk about some of this speculative, Amazing Race, Big Brother crossover stuff. I think it'd be cool to just kind of speculate who could possibly be on there. I've seen a lot of good possibilities. I heard Corey and James is a rumor. Here's one I haven't seen anywhere that I can almost guarantee you. Just and not like I don't have it from anywhere. I don't have a source. I'm just like putting myself in the place of CBS and who they like and stuff. Andrea and Meg, put it on the board, man. If not Andrea and Meg and Mike Holloway.
Yeah.
But Meg is going to be on this season, man. That's my call. I'm making the call now. We'll see if I'm right.
Andrea and Meg, you willing to put money on that?
Yeah, I'd put money on that. Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Okay. Okay. Well, I've already got enough bets going on right now in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
So I'm beautiful, colorful Canadian money.
I'm gonna wait and see what happens with the Stanley Cup playoffs, because I picked Everybody thought it was the craziest person in the world to pick Vegas to win the cup this year, but I'm looking pretty okay with that right now. So
yeah, I'm not the biggest hockey fan, although I am a Washington homer, so I've got to be a big Nats fan. I'm sorry, a Caps fan. Like when it comes to it, but. Yeah, I've seen that. That's pretty impressive, man. It's not often that a city gets a team and it's suddenly like good. But congrats to Vegas, man. They've not really had a lot sports wise to cheer for, so good for them.
Absolutely. They had
it's all happening. Hockey championship, getting the Raiders soon.
They had not a lot of people, probably not even people in Vegas would know this, but they had a team in the Canadian Football League when they expanded in the mid-90s. It was an absolute train wreck. They're known for an anthem singer who couldn't even sing the tune to "O Canada." That's their claim to fame for professional sports, was the Las Vegas Posse. So
Vegas Posse. Posse's a good name for Vegas,
right?
They always stick them with it's like usually team names are just animals or stuff. Like, no, you're always felons.
Right.
Man. And they're like, yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, guys, if you guys liked this, feel free to give it a thumbs up in the section below. You can always like and subscribe, and stay tuned because my next podcast will be on Thursday night following finale, once a new winner of Big Brother Canada is crowned, and we've got a very special treat for you guys. I'm so excited to welcome Queen Bee. Brittany Blair is going to be on my show following finale. Stay tuned for that. You can follow me at Joel BBCan or Joel Lefebvre on Facebook, or Joel BBCan4 on Instagram for all the details to that. My thanks again to Alex Kidwell for his wonderful insight. And yeah, we will see you guys on Thursday. Take care. Toodles.